This is the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose, where I strategize with business owners on how to grow and scale their businesses to hit their income goals. This is episode 227 of the Influencer Entrepreneurs Podcast with Jenny Melrose. Today, we're going to be talking about the weirdest growth strategies in entrepreneurship with Johnathan Grzybowski. He is the founder of Penji, which is an amazing opportunity for you guys to get to work with some of the best designers out there. Penji is a service where you can actually sign up and for a monthly fee, be able to get all of your design efforts done through one place. So if it's a logo, if it is an opt-in, if it is a social media post, this is where you can go in order to get your graphic design work done. It only takes 24 to 48 hours to get your graphics back, and you're able to make suggestions and needs that you want, revisions pretty much, from those graphics. This is one of the services that I wish that I had probably 4 years ago, because I have spent thousands of dollars in the end all be all of having graphic designers work on content for me to help me create the products and services that are out there. So if you have graphic design needs, you're not only going to want to listen in and get a better understanding for what Penji is all about and what they stand for, but you're also going to really be able to gain a great bit of knowledge from the weirdest growth strategies that Penji has used in order to grow their business. I hope you guys will make sure that you not only take advantage and listen, but also will take advantage of the offer that they're giving you. We're going to link to it in the show notes, but if you go to penji.co, you can use the code Melrose15, all one word with the number 15 at the end, in order to get 15% off your first month, your first quarter, however you decide to sign up for it. It is an amazing service. And not only that, but it is an amazing company. You're really going to hear as I have this interview with Johnathan, and he dives into the core values of his company. This is a company that I want to stand beside and be able to help promote and talk about, because his values are in line with mine. He is authentic and real and is about to really drop some gems of information that you can apply to your own business, as well as see how his is a perfect fit for yours. All right, you guys, let's dive in. Hey, Johnathan, how are you?
I'm doing pretty awesome. How about yourself?
Very good, thank you. I am excited to dive into this. I know that probably people are wondering, with our title of this episode being the weirdest growth strategies. But before we dive into that, will you introduce yourself and your business?
Yeah, so I'm Johnathan, and I'm one of the co-founders of Penji. We're a on-demand graphic design service for businesses all at a flat monthly rate. So we're kind of changing, or at least challenging, the original status quo of how graphic design is received, and we've placed it inside of a one flat monthly rate type of membership, so to speak, where our customers sign up for our service on our website, and then they get access to our pool of graphic design talent, and then they can submit anything that they want. So they can submit things like a logo, they can submit things like social media content, they can submit things like website apps. If you are the type of person that is listening if you're the type of person that needs graphic design on a monthly, like constant basis, you're constantly doing graphic design, and you're probably using something like a Canva or some kind, or maybe you have like a personal VA that's doing it for you. We basically work against that. So if you don't want to do it yourself, if you don't want to contact a VA, we become a talent. So that one designer typically can do usually one designer can do one thing, right? They're really good at, say, graphics on social media, but they probably can't hand draw something, or they probably can't do a website design, for example. I don't know. I'm just using this as an example. Penji gives you the flexibility of doing that because you have a team of hundreds of graphic designers where you can pick and choose, versus that of being pigeonholed into one talent. And so that's a little bit about, I guess, the introduction about me and more so the business.
Yes. No. And I am glad that you went into that, because when I first found out about you guys, I was super excited, because that was one of my biggest struggles in my business, was the graphic design. I'm not creatively, artistically, I'm very challenged when it comes to that. And I spent probably thousands of dollars hiring out to have different graphic designers that I work with. But the idea that you could go to one place and be able to hire for all of it, I loved this idea. So it's brilliant. I'm not surprised that your company has grown so quickly. Let's actually talk a little bit about your company. So entrepreneurship, as we like to call it, often feels like a roller coaster ride with ups and downs. Can you talk a little bit about your journey with your company and the ups and downs that actually came with it?
It still happens to this day. I mean, I would say this week in particular, kind of sucks, for me right now. And that's not, please don't feel bad, or anybody listening, don't feel bad. It's fine. But I'm saying that because there are good days, there are bad days, and you kind of have to manage all of that in between. So the original question was, how did it start?
Yeah. So just that journey of the ups and downs.
Yeah,
what were kind of some of the struggles that you ran into as you started to grow?
In the beginning, it was just customers, right? Getting people on board to understand this is a completely new idea. Not a lot of people still to this day even understand it, because it's challenging, a lot of that. Another aspect of the challenges after that were finding the right graphic designers. And now the struggles that we have are primarily in the realm of keeping the talent, retaining the talent, and being able to create a company culture that people want to legitimately work for. So we're in a little bit of a different place than most people may be, because we have to just continue to create that culture, and that's probably the harder part. But in the very beginning, I think it was just customer acquisition. But I think we had some really, really interesting strategies on how we were able to grow that.
So I'm glad that you shared that, about that this week isn't one of the best weeks, because I think that a lot of times people see entrepreneurs that are successful at these large companies. And we're going to talk a little bit about the fact that you're an Inc. 5000 company. But I think that it's important for them to understand that no matter how large we grow, there's still those struggles. It's not an easy thing to be an entrepreneur. There's the ups and downs, and you kind of have to roll with it and pick yourself up and figure out how to move forward to make it a better company. So I've mentioned briefly that the company is an Inc. 5000. What are the qualifications to qualify as that?
To be honest, I don't even know. I think it was somewhere around the lines of 2 million in revenue for an extended period of time. So we hit that pretty quickly. We've only been in business for about 4 or 5 years. So that qualification itself is that milestone is a validation point for not only us as a business, but also the industry that we're going into. And that was something that, like, at first I was really excited about it, because it's like, holy crap, I run a company that's on this. But then I really started looking at it and I was like, you know what, it's really not that important. It's just a vanity thing, and obviously we use that for marketing because it's something that you can stand behind, and it's hard to do it. But I think, personally speaking, I don't know if it's not as exciting as you think. And more so than that, the things, something that I thought was really interesting in my entrepreneurship career, and I think I'm very transparent with how I feel about all stages of entrepreneurship, because I hate entrepreneurship, to be honest with you. I hate what it's become, because it's become more of a vanity thing than it has kind of like what you said, it seems like from your questions and how you're asking, it seems like we may be on similar wavelengths here, where a lot of people, the influencer world is promoting all this hard work that they're doing, and they're doing it while sitting on a beach of some kind. And that's not my version of entrepreneurship. My definition and version of that is hard work doing the same thing for over an extended period of time for the past 8 years of my life. I'm 32, so I've been doing this for a decent of my entire adult life, for the most part. But the things that I always thought to myself, that if I only got an Inc. 5000, or if I only got an Inc., if I only got mentioned in Forbes, if I only got on this podcast, or if I only became an Inc. 5000 recipient, then X would come out of it. And I can sit here before you today that not only did X never happen, but Y never happened either. What really matters is the problem that you're solving, and also how much your customers love you. I would say that is, to round my answer, that would be it.
And I love that answer, because I think that what you're kind of talking about with that whole, like, the hustle that's happening on the beach is that bro marketing that we have a tendency of seeing a lot right now.
Bro marketing, is that what you said? Yeah, that's so bro for sure. 100%.
Yes, with the cars and everything else. And that is definitely not what my audience is looking for. So now I'm really excited to get further into this discussion with you. Because you've obviously had success growing your business. So what are some of the weirdest strategies that your company has used to grow?
I think the weirdest strategies that we've done is the most boring, because it's kind of like it's the question is thought provoking, but the answer is very not sexy. One thing that we told ourselves from the beginning, that we will never trade attention or respect for attention. So we're not going to make a fool of ourselves in order to get our name out there. We've became a really good company that people can stand behind, and we use that as leverage to grow the company. And the reason why it's weird is because everybody thinks that they have to do unconventional things in order to grow their business. And the thing that's weird about it is that we didn't do any of that, and we were still able to grow the business the way that we did. So some of the things that we did in order to establish ourselves, right now, our stage of business, we're in the branding stage, in the identification stage. So we want people to associate the name Penji with graphic design. And that's kind of where we are. The first couple of years has been like customer acquisition. How can we get, if you are breathing and have a pulse, like we would have taken you at some point in time. And now it's like, let's ask you a few questions before we know that you're breathing and you have a pulse. So some of the original strategies were that we started a nonprofit program called Penji for Nonprofits, where we offer our services to nonprofits, select nonprofits, for $1 a month. That gave us a considerable amount of attraction towards our service, because we are helping our community, but that was built into our DNA. We used things like advertising in the very beginning that we wasted thousands of dollars on, because it wasn't done right. The wrong audiences, we weren't talking to the right people, our messaging wasn't right. Before we even launched the product, we even went ahead and interviewed close to 150, 200 people or so in order to validate what it is that we were building. And that was before we even had an ounce of technology. So there's a lot of things that we did prior to the launch of Penji that allowed us to understand the customer better. And then the last weird thing I'd say, and then I'm sure you have questions from there. I'm sorry if you want me to stop, just let me know. The last thing is, even to this day, what we do now is we talk to and we interview our customers. We ask them their feedback. Hey, we're thinking about doing X. What are your thoughts? We want to do Y. Would you pay if we were to do this, et cetera, et cetera. And that, to me, has been the data portion, has been the strongest factor to why we grew the way that we did, because we can pinpoint exactly and say, if we spend $10,000 on X, we're going to get Y in return, and it needs to be this particular person because we've had the most success with this particular type of individual. So those are just a couple of weird things, and I'm sure we can get into more even later.
Yeah. So first, it sounds to me that you really know your core values as far as what your company stands for, right? You really stepped into those. And I think even when you were talking about like it being a vanity numbers or a vanity metric with being an Inc. 5000 company, that you didn't like the bro marketing. You, again, stepped into your core values and showed that you were an authentic company that was going to be based upon value.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that shows. Are there specific core values that you think you would say your company has?
Yeah, I would say I actually have them listed like on my desktop at all times in order for me to just see them. And so just to kind of give you a quick background, because I think this could be helpful for your audience, I have a thing called innovative words called to-do list. And it's on my desktop. It's literally just like a notepad. I have a Mac, so it's like a text edit document.
Yeah.
And it basically has success metrics, quarterly goals, Penji's philosophies, and then just like to-do list things that I need to do in a day, in addition to a handwritten one that I have by my side. So with that said, because I think it's helpful, I think everybody needs a visual representation of what they need to do. But I think the most important thing that we do is, I'll just list off a couple, is improve by a minimum of 1% every day. So I already told you this week hasn't been the greatest, right? And not in terms of anything in particular, sales is fine. Customers are happy, things like that. Just a little off. So I can go down 10 pegs, right? But if I end the day 1% better than what I started, then I think we're pretty good. And a couple of other things is you don't need resources. You need to be resourceful. So a lot of times entrepreneurs are constantly looking towards the next big thing in order to move themselves in the right direction. And we use literally like 5 services. Zoom is one of those 5. Google is one of the other. Outside that, we really don't use that much stuff. A couple of other things that I'll just mention. And again, I don't know if these are like core values, but these are just like philosophies that we live by. And I already told you, never trade respect for attention. Never train someone to do something that you can do yourself. So a lot of times entrepreneurs, the first thing that they outsource is sales, which I think is stupid, but it happens. And so my thing is, if you're trying to outsource sales, then you need to get to a point where you yourself are able to drive sales. And if you're not able to do it, then how the hell is somebody else going to be able to do it? And then the last thing I want to mention is that we as a company, so our people, our internal staff, are more important than our customers. And that is very controversial to some degree to some people, because they're like, well, how the hell can you say that? Because your customers are the ones that are driving the most revenue. And we're understanding that a customer will come and a customer will go, but our people will still be there even when the customers are gone. So, and again, you could say, well, if you don't have any customers or whatever, et cetera. However, if we believe that if we're able to teach our employees and with respect and pay them adequately based off of where they live in the world, and just make them feel like they matter, then they're going to be able to do a better job towards the customer experience. So those are just a couple of the philosophies and core values.
Nope. And I love those. You also talked earlier about data. And I think that's one of the things that as business owners, a lot of people shy away from. They get nervous when it comes to the data and the numbers and knowing whether or not they're getting the ROI. But the fact that you can tie it to that, even just by saying that 1% better each day, it just makes it so measurable and easy for you to be able to know whether or not you're doing the things that you want to in your company. So you talked about that for your company, your employees are more important than the customers. And that's actually one of my next question kind of is in line with that. So you've grown at a rapid pace and expanded your team in order to do that. Are there systems that you put in place early on to help communication amongst your team?
Communication piece. Would you want to know the answer to that question from a founder to like a co-founder to an employee, or manager to employee?
I would probably say manager to employee.
Mm-hmm. So communication, when it comes to all of our communication, is done via Slack. So that's number one. We have people here in the United States. We are 100% remote. We will be getting, we do have an office, with COVID and all that other fun stuff, kind of limited that a little bit, but we do have an office. We only have a handful of people, under 15 here in the United States. Everybody else is actually, outside of, either the United States or at least Philadelphia, which is where we're located. So communication is very critical in our world. What we typically do, some like small benchmarks in terms of communication, is if there's a Zoom call. I guess I can answer this in several ways. If there is a training is very important, right? And understanding your role is incredibly important. Every single document when it comes to training has to involve some form of clear visuals, pictures, and video. That's from the training piece. Then when it comes to the communication piece, every conversation has to be video enabled and audio enabled. There's no aspect of you not being able to see that individual. And I guess expanding beyond that, and if you want me to answer this question in a different way, by all means, ask the question. But I would say the things that come to my mind was touch points, right? So does the person understand their KPIs clearly enough to fully understand what is expected from them? And so we give that to them, and we basically just integrate it into their brain. This is your KPI. This is what you have to do. This is what you have to do. And this is how you do it. If you don't do this, then we're going to have a conversation. And so we have managers in place that kind of manage the smaller teams. Then we have the larger teams. And we're at a point now where the co-founders of the company can kind of just look at it from a 30,000 foot view and be able to look at the visuals and the data and say, okay, this person isn't performing. We need to talk to this person's manager. And then, going on without people, these numbers are not working. We need to invest more in why. So like, I would say in a nutshell, communication is the centerpiece, the cornerstone of our organization. But I think it's two parts. I think it's the people piece, but then the communication with the data piece. And I think they kind of have to work in harmony.
Yes. No, I love it. That was a better answer than I was even looking for, to be honest, because it touched on both points of what we're talking about here. I was looking for like the systems that you had in place. And the example you gave was great as far as having the visuals as well as the video, because I think a lot of times when we write emails and it can get lost in translation, and what needs to be understood that should be happening doesn't, because I know a lot of people listening are trying to build their team and are trying to get people kind of put into different positions within their organizations and struggle with this piece and always say, well, they don't know how to do it right. And I always try to go back to what's the system? How are you communicating what you want them to do? But the fact that you tied it to a KPI to have those touch points is what makes everything measurable and makes it valid whether or not they're actually performing. Could you give an example of a KPI that you're kind of looking at with, like, let's say one of your designers?
I can't say designer stuff, but I can say,
Okay.
I'll give you another one, which I'm personally in charge of. So one thing, if anybody ever says to you or their consultant or their friend or whatever it is, employee X is not doing it right. If you say that, and if you've ever said that, then you need to look in the mirror and you need to say, I'm wrong. It's actually my fault. not their fault, because it's your fault for not doing the right thing and setting the right expectations and making it clear. And then you can say, okay, well, no, I did do that. It's crystal clear. Well, clearly it's not. Go back to the drawing board, do it all over again, and stop being a stubborn piece of crap and just do your job, because that's your job as the manager and the founder. That's the number one huge pain point and frustration for me is the excuses that are being made. So a KPI would be something that I'm very much so involved in, is the process of expanding the reach of the company. How can we talk to new audiences, people like your audience in particular? You have a X number of people that listen to your show. How can people understand Penji a little bit further? The KPIs for that are they have to get at least 5 press opportunities a week. 5 press opportunities. And then when it comes to like the support roles, some of them are like, bringing back old customers that previously canceled, showing the value of what it is. There are a lot of other ones. However, I would say that each department probably has a KPI of about like 3 to 5 at max, because we find that the specialization is probably the easiest, because when you start to put like all these different things under somebody's like work role, then it gets confusing and diluted. I mean, if you're a small business listening to this, your natural reaction is like, well, yeah, I need somebody to do this and do that, and 800 other things. Like, no, that's why services like ours exist. If graphic design and marketing is one of those things, just pay for our service. Like, we're cheaper than an employee. But I would say that every single job has to involve a new employee or any type of specialization. What is the main goal here? Okay, customer support. Then just hire literally customer support and don't let them do anything else. So for us, the KPIs are very crystal clear. And if they don't hit it in 1 week, maybe they had an off week. 2 weeks, let's talk about it. What can we do to make it better? 3 weeks, what the hell are you doing? 4 weeks, maybe we might issue or determine like a strike or something like that. And like baseball, 3 strikes, you're out. This is the name of the game.
Yes. No, that makes a ton of sense and is really helpful, because I think we hear KPI and we automatically go, oh God, it's going to be some huge thing that I need to measure. But the one that you gave about the PR was, it's easy to measure, right? They've given me 5 opportunities to speak on 5 different podcasts, and that's how simple it needs to be, and straightforward. So that was a great example. I love that. What would you say is the largest hurdle or setback that your company faced?
Honestly, I would just gonna say myself, because I think me as a leader, I struggle with that. I think I'm a really good promoter, but when it comes to just like managing people, that's not my strong suit. So I think that has probably been the largest hurdle. I can definitely do it into a scale. But I think once it hits a critical mass of X number, like that's where my threshold is. So I would say the biggest hurdle for my answer to this, for myself, is literally myself. Because like I'm one of the people in charge of a lot of people in the company. So if my game isn't on, then other things fall. I think as a company, I would say the biggest hurdle was probably just talking to the right audience, because the initial audience that we had, that we were kind of like going all in for, was the startup audience. And startups, I think, were really cool at the time, because everybody has these new ideas and et cetera, et cetera. But if you really think about it, the amount of apps that can be created, the amount of businesses that can be created, not a lot of people are downloading apps anymore. Let's just call it what it is. I'm sure there's statistics out there that would disagree. I personally don't download apps. I don't even really use that many apps, and I'm sure a large majority of people don't as well. So with that in mind, we were wrong about the startup audience, and the people who really need us are influencers, people who are constantly in need of graphic design. people who are constantly creating things, the creators, like that's the biggest hurdle. So being able to say a sentence and then a person resonates with that was that was a huge hurdle that we had to overcome.
And that hurdle, I think, is one that every business owner goes through, right? We pivot, we shift, we think about, well, maybe this is the problem that I'm really solving and this is who I should be talking to. But I think you've definitely landed on the right audience for sure now, because as someone that has needed graphics so many times, I can just from blog post to podcast art to logos to opt-ins. Oh my God, the amounts of things that we need it for. So right now for our listeners, you are actually offering for your website a code to be able to use at checkout that we're going to link to in the show notes. Can you talk just quickly about what the code will offer them at Penji.co? They're going to use the code Melrose15, which we'll link to again in the show notes. But what are they getting for signing up?
So it would be a 15% discount. So if you use the code Melrose15, obviously you've invested time in listening to this episode, and I hope that you got a lot of value from it. And if you did, just use the code Melrose15. So you get 15% off. It's just the first month. So after that, then it would be the normal monthly rate. But every little bit helps. And I hope that you're able to love the words that were said. I hope that you resonate with our story.
Yes. And if I were to sign up for a month and I had 3 different logos, 2 different opt-ins, 15 different social media posts, could I get those all done in the first month?
It's definitely possible. I would say for the most part, it kind of just depends, but our delivery is around I have too many numbers in my head. Our maximum output and delivery is 48 hours max. So for example, if you said you needed the 15 social media posts, there's a strong chance that they'll be done in under 48 hours. Okay. Now, once that project is done, then we move on to the next one. So the way the people that are listening, think of Penji as if it's in a queue system, like an ordering system, just like you would order at Starbucks, right? You order your drink, it goes into their queue. Then from there, it's reviewed by the designer. Once it's done, you get your thing, you go away, you go back in line, you order it again, you do that 100 times, and that's essentially exactly what Penji is. Obviously, you wait a little bit longer for a drink if it's going to be 15, frappuccinos, because that's the longer thing that it takes, and that's no different than that of what Penji is. It might take a little bit longer than 48 hours, but our goal is to deliver things in 48 hours. Our average is around 24 hours in terms of our delivery. So, the answer to the question is if you have ongoing need, then obviously that's the best bet. If you want to just use us for a month and get out, that's totally cool too. But for the most part, I think what you said, I think we'd be able to do it. There's a lot of factors, of course, but my thing is, sign up for like a quarterly plan, test us out for 3 months. You're going to get a discount from it, and you're actually going to be able to see the value in what it is that we do. Or you can sign up for the month and then go on to the quarterly plan after that. So there's a lot of flexibility that you have with a service like ours. And I truly believe that we're helping and solving a huge problem. And I hope the people that are listening, they agree with that.
Perfect. Nope. That explains it so much better. I'm glad I asked that little last piece because it just so they have a better idea of how they can use it for their business. Sure. Johnathan, where are the best places to connect with you and the company?
I don't post on social media, so you don't want to connect with me at all. I am the most boring person on social media. Going back to the tools and stuff like that, I deleted, I didn't delete, but I removed everything I've ever posted on every platform. So you definitely want to look at Penji because it's way more interesting. But if you just search for Penji in your favorite social platform, .penji is another one too, DOTPENJI. The main point is just head over to the website, penji.co, and you'll be able to see everything that we talked about today. Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with my audience. I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
All right, guys. Well, there you have it. Clearly, this is a company that I align truly, truly well with, not only for the services they offer, but also for the core values that Johnathan talked about. He is truly so authentic and is doing this for the purpose of saving us time and energy, which I am all about. Rather than trying to figure it out on your own, being able to hire someone that is not graphically challenged like I am to be able to put it right into practice and have that finished product. So again, you guys, make sure that you take advantage of that 15% off that he is offering. You can go to penji.co and use the code Melrose15, all one word, in order to get 15% off. As always, I appreciate you guys so much when you leave a rating and review. It helps to bring forth great experts, find out about new services that are going to make our life so much easier, like Penji. So if you haven't already left me a rating and review, I would so appreciate it if you took the time to do so. All right, guys, until next time, I will see you all then.